You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined as always by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Doing good. So we are past the College Football National Championship. We are on to the NFL Conference Championship games, which honestly, these games, this is probably the best weekend football has to offer is the Conference Championship weekend. So we have that, and then we turn our attention to pro days and the underwear Olympics. At least here after a little while, there's some free agency that comes up too. But, realistically, it's all good, man. It's all good. We're about ready to wrap up the 2024-2025 football season. Got a couple weeks left here, but nevertheless, man, another Tuesday, another night with the opportunity to hang out with you and talk some football, man. So I'm doing all right.
It has been a good one, right? Like some interesting games over the weekend. We saw some interesting things there, right? Some news, some notes coming out, and it's certainly been an interesting one here, and it'll be interesting to see how some of these other things kind of shape up here as we get into the conference championships here. And we certainly had some shocks in the divisional round, right? We probably saw a game that I think would have been probably more appropriate to see in this coming weekend with the Bills and the Ravens, right? Like a game that was really competitive pretty much throughout, right? The Bills got up a little bit, the Ravens came back, and certainly when it comes down to that very last play, that's always a fun thing to see there. The Lions, the Commanders, right? The Commanders kind of going in there and shocking everybody by knocking off Detroit, and they really just that defense that had been banged up for a while and been finding answers, they just didn't seem to find an answer for Washington there.
Yeah. This weekend, I guess a couple things. We talked about last Tuesday with Binkin, right? We were talking about the Commanders and what they had to do to be able to give themselves opportunities, and they did exactly that, right? We talked about 2 turnovers. Hell, they forced 5.
Right.
Right? They created short fields. They stopped the Lions. They made their 4th down attempts, right? I mean, the Commanders did everything humanly possible and came out the W, right? So congratulations to them. A well executed game plan from that team and being able to be in the right spot at the right time for some of those turnovers. And then turnovers kind of reared their head again with the Bills and Ravens game. So, arguably the better team lost both of those games. However, turnovers, as we hear in football, are the ultimate equalizer. And those 2 games in particular definitely showed that, if your defense can create some turnovers, it stands that you have a very, very good chance of winning your playoff game. So kudos to those teams, and you know what, on to the next round. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, and what was also interesting too was to sit there and watch 3 elite named quarterbacks not even get to 200 yards passing, and their team moved on, right? The Mahomes didn't clear 200, and the Chiefs won. Hurts didn't get up there. Josh Allen didn't get up there. And had you told me going in that Josh Allen was going to had the stat line that he had, I would have thought that the Ravens would have just absolutely rolled that game, thinking that that it would have taken a Superman type of effort from Josh Allen in order for the Bills to be moving on. But 6 for 22 and 127 yards, and didn't lead the team in rushing either. Like, it was one of those that they certainly played a full team game on that one for sure.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. It was The weather definitely kind of messed with everybody, right? And it was cold all over the country. It was freezing cold in Kansas City, and then you go to the next day, it was, the snow and the wind and everything else in Philadelphia and Buffalo. Some really stinking cold games. So, the only team that didn't have to play in the cold was the Commanders, who won their game against the Lions with it being in a dome, but that's probably a good thing because that game would have been freezing cold too. Like the cold
Oh,
snap across the country. I think that did play into the lack of passing. It also played into some strategy around special teams, both punting and field goals. So, you know, it makes for interesting games essentially, but it's also why I would argue why you don't ever really want an outdoor Super Bowl unless it's Miami or San Diego. Like you
right.
want the game to be played at its purest form and not necessarily have some of these other things dictate how the game flow is going to go.
Right. And that's kind of a really good thought there, right? Like some of those Super Bowls that were in New York, right? And in that stadium there, like that didn't necessarily equate to some of the best football we've seen there. But when you take the weather out of it, you certainly seem to get more entertaining games on that one. So
Mhm.
we do have a couple of comments coming in here. Let's hit these up here real quick. Jamie over on YouTube saying, "Sup, dudes." Not much, Jamie. You know how we do it. Doing that old Tuesday show.
That's right. What's going on, Jamie?
And Smokey the Cat saying, "What up, guys? Plus 16 Commanders over the Bills in the old SB. Thoughts on that one?"
Hey, I mean, 2 of the final 4. I mean, yeah, you
Right?
you gotta like your chances a little bit at this point. So there's nothing wrong with that. The Commanders are hot. Um, the Bills, they got to get over this last bugaboo, right? The Chiefs in the playoffs has been something that the Bills haven't been able to really overcome. So they got to go to both teams need to go on the road and show out and do it one more time to get to the big dance. But I mean, Smokey, there nothing wrong with that. Uh, 2 weeks ago, had you told me that, I would have been like, nah, like, I hope you didn't put too much into it. And now you're looking at it going, yeah, this might be a nice little payday.
Right. So, and we've seen the Commanders, beat Philadelphia, and Jaden Daniels seemingly just kind of has that it factor when it comes down to it, right? Like, game on the line. There's not many rookie quarterbacks that you want to put in that situation, and seemingly has handled it incredibly well all season, and just seems to find the answers coming down to it. So, it's one of those that if they can keep that game close and keep that game close into the fourth quarter and give them a shot, it really could be very interesting to see how that thing ultimately comes to play, because if Philadelphia's offense outside of Saquon Barkley just doesn't seem to quite be clicking on all cylinders there. So they haven't necessarily needed it to be, but when Saquon's putting up the type of yardage he is and is able to break one from anywhere on the field, that certainly covers up a lot of the other kind of sins in the passing game there. But
Yeah, 79-yard touchdown runs do that for you.
absolutely. So, by the way, well, I'm just going to kind of call that early shot. I see a big regression coming for Saquon in the 2025 for everybody out there listening. A way too early hot take there, but yeah. So, no, it'll be interesting to see there, right? The some of the other things that came up there were some of the calls that came out there, right? The what was really interesting was to listen to some of those those pressers after the fact for the Houston players, and even the coach seemingly kind of getting in a little bit at pointing the finger at some of the calls and the officiating there. I didn't see anything coming down from the league office in the last couple of days as far as corrective approach from the league there. But any thoughts on that?
Nah, I think they're letting him vent a little bit, right? It's the playoffs. It was a bad roughing the passer call, right? The one that everybody's talking about. It was a bad roughing the passer call. I know D'Amico came out and said, we knew coming in here that it would be us against everybody, and I mean everybody, right? Like he got his little subtle jab in, but he didn't directly throw him under the bus, so the NFL let it slide. Typically, much like in playoff basketball, the NFL swallows its whistle a little bit, right, so to speak, in handing out some of these fines. So they're gonna let teams, as long as it's not completely degrading, get their frustration out. And again, you're sticking a microphone in these guys' face, 10 minutes after a game's over. Their emotions are still high. They're coming down off of it with the adrenaline and everything else. Like, what do you expect them to say? I
Right.
mean, the Texans didn't play a flawless game, but they played a solid game. And some of the deficiencies that they had were, I don't know, equal parts just kind of Kansas City luck, as we've come to see it. And, maybe a phantom call or two.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting to see like I know that a lot of folks have gone out there and kind of showcased that, if scores had been reversed in 1-point games type of thing, where the Chiefs record would be at. But it's kind of interesting to see, right, some of these calls. And one of the things that I kept seeing brought up there was the the kind of the scramble where they called the late hit type of thing, unnecessary roughness, where the two Texans just collide with each other, kind of go over the top of Mahomes there, and gets roughing or unnecessary roughness called, 15-yard penalty on that one. But I get the purpose of that call, where you're wanting to try and protect the players and really keep these guys from going in and hitting these guys as they're going into the slides. But some of that does come down to the quarterbacks as well. Like, we've seen this constantly play out, where quarterbacks are sliding late, or they, in some cases we even see them start to kind of slide and then they don't, and they pick it up and go, or the going down the sideline and they start acting like they're going to go out of bounds. The defensive player pulls up and the guy then scoots up the sidelines for another few yards there. Like, it's one of those that ultimately you've got to make it one way or another, right? If the guy's going down, if the guy starts to going down, or he starts going out of bounds and he's giving himself up, then he's out, right? Like, that's what it is. If he's going to, pull some of the shenanigans and put himself in a position where the defensive player has to finish the play, and then you're going to try and legislate that out of the game. It's one of those that I'd like to see something put into place where there's a penalty the other way, right? And you really want to get that nonsense out of it. Just make it real simple. If the quarterback's going to slide and then pull some of that the shenanigans there, it's a turnover, and I guarantee you we'll see it stop day one.
Let's tag him with an unsportsmanlike, right? Because
Mhm.
that's ultimately what it is. Like, it is sportsmanship for the defender to not just level them
Right.
any chance they get. So for the quarterback to fake going out or fake going down, it's unsportsmanlike. And on the flip side, there has to be a way, and I know part of it's the eye test. There has to be a way to legislate this evenly across games, because while Mahomes got the call, Jared Goff got some sweet chin music after one of those
Mhm.
turnovers that was not called, and that was absolutely unnecessary roughness, right? I mean,
Right.
led with the helmet, caught him right underneath the chin, knocked him out. Teddy Bridgewater had to come in the next play or the next series, as Goff was going through concussion protocol. There, that one should have been called. Um, one instance, the turnover was made, right? So it doesn't take away the turnover, and I'm not saying that, but maybe Washington needed that penalty, and they just need to start, 15 yards back and work their way in. Does it
Right.
change anything? Who knows? It's just for the consistency between games, right? If you're going to call the Texans for not even extending, right, and following through with
Right.
Mahomes, right, on that one, if you're gonna call that one, then when Jared Goff gets decleated from getting popped underneath the chin, that rightfully should be called also.
Right.
So,
or the Stafford one at the very end of that game, right? Like got popped really good, and it was one of those that I'm watching that going, man, if we had seen a different jersey on that one, we probably would have seen a flag thrown on that one. Like it was one of those that, you get the it just seems to kind of be that Mahomes call a little bit.
yeah. So, I mean, so I guess what I think I would like to see, right, is knowing that these referees are human. The league has the ability to buzz down on these plays and say, "Hey, you missed one,"
Mhm.
or "Hey, overturn this." Like if it's just clear and they're just going to speed up the game, I think the league needs to step in on some things like that. Like if player safety is truly the concern, like look, man, like there's not really a place in the game for that hit. Like grab him by the jersey, drive him back, like a good clean block to clear him out of the way if he's going to be going for the tackle. I get it. I get it. But if you're throwing your head down and then forcibly coming up and decleating someone and your helmet hits their chin, like that's not that's not how they teach blocking. That's not form football. So flag it. Have the league office blow it down. Say, hey, we missed one. Check this out. Okay, yep, you're right. You keep the ball, you move it back, and then you go. So,
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Competition committee is going to have to look at it in the offseason.
Yeah. And there's something that's like, there's something that I'm just leaning more towards the fact that we need to see something different here, because some of it is getting just a little bit out of hand. So it's a physical game. It's a contact sport. Like this isn't, but it needs to, I just want to see more, to your point, I want to see more consistency across the board on that. So a couple of comments coming in here. Binkin saying, "Sup, my guys? How about Washington?" Binkin, you missed it. Kevin was shouting that one out to open up the show there, and called out your comment from last week.
Absolutely. Exactly what we were talking about, right? I mean, and they forced turnovers. We were saying one, maybe two, and some sacks. Heck, Washington got 5. I mean, so good on them. They did exactly what they needed to. So good game by the Commanders. I really do like both of those head coaches, right? Dan Quinn and Dan Campbell. The teams are playing around them. Obviously, they have plenty of support with their staff and everything else, but I like those guys for some reason. Like I see them as football coaches that I remember like from back in my youth. If in some ways, like I'd play for that guy. Like that'd be pretty cool. So good on him. So Washington's got one more, right? Got to get past the Eagles and see if you can get your rookie quarterback to the Super Bowl. That'd be something.
Right?
A lot of storyline there. A lot of storyline there.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure how I say this one. Oh yeah, it's Bob Dole. I remember. Yep, I remember that. So Bob Dole is saying that he thinks it's a misappropriation of superiority when you utilize that your status is to go ahead and get that extra yardage. Yeah, I mean it goes back to what you were talking about, right? That unsportsman like kind of conduct there.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Dole saying you just got to surf the gray area. And can you talk about the conspiracy theory of the color of the logo for the Super Bowl? It didn't come true last year though, right? Like that was one where it was supposed to be the Ravens and the Niners, I think, in the Super Bowl, if we went by the color theory last year.
Yeah, or the Vikings and Chiefs, right? Depending on how you looked at it.
Needed a purple team in there.
Yeah. So
with that, there's this year you've got kind of that red and green. So if you're going off of that, you're probably looking more so at the Chiefs and the Eagles being there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of what that looks like, and certainly if you're kind of rolling in and looking at that, you're looking at that, those would be the two teams favored to be there as well. But yeah, I did also hear some things on there as well, that it's talking about the yeah, that there's even hidden meanings and all of that stuff in there, and um yeah, I can understand some of that, but yeah, this is again one of those that I think that it's very interesting to see how the how that'll kind of come out to be there, right? Like, yeah, that is very much all of the things that we keep seeing, is that this is going to be an Eagles and a Chiefs type of thing, if you're going by the going by that theory there. But I don't know what are your thoughts on that one, Bob? Like, let us know, right? Like, do you put any stock into that one, or anybody out there in the chat? If is this something that you're actively looking at, and really kind of looking at the teams with how they play out on that one? Let us know in the chat, and we can explore this one a little bit further there. Scott saying, do you think the Bills can beat the Chiefs? I do think that there is there's certainly a chance that the Bills can beat the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs have been very much in the really kind of setting they haven't necessarily been dominant all year round, right? Like, we just haven't necessarily seen that one. We've seen the Bills beat the Chiefs in the regular season, and were their only loss up until week 17 or week 18, I'm sorry, when the Chiefs sat everybody going up against the Broncos there. But this is one that it's probably, the line's like 1.5 to 2, depending upon where you look at it. So this is going to be another one possession game, and it really will. I think this one really will come down to who has the ball last on this one, more so than who can. It's probably going to be a last second field goal that's either made or missed that ultimately wins this one, and that's where I kind of see this one coming through. Right, a couple of things that Buffalo will probably have to do as they get going in this one. One, you're going to want to ultimately control the control time of possession. You're gonna want to play a clean game. The Chiefs have been doing a really good job when it comes to you're kind of limiting other teams there, but this is one that I think we could see I think we'll see a really, really good matchup here. And I'm just trying to see some other things here, but I think that this one here is a game that we probably won't see Josh Allen be able to kind of sit back and have 127 passing yards. I think this is a game in which if the Bills are going to win, it's going to take the Josh Allen Superman type of performance here to come through, right? It's going to take the Bills defense stepping up and creating some turnovers on that one, right? When they played earlier, the Bills forced 2 interceptions off of Patrick Mahomes there. They dominated time of possession, and I think that's going to be ultimately kind of what that comes into play there, right? Like, can you win time of possession? Can you create a plus in the turnover category there, and can you get to Mahomes a little bit, right? Like, we know the Chiefs are going to certainly dial up the blitz packages, and we're going to see them definitely kind of bring the heat on that one. Just part of being a Spagnuolo defense, like there's a very aggressive approach there, but I do think that is one of those that are they going to be able to put some pressure on that? Are they going to be able to create some turnovers on this one, and are they going to be able to control the time of possession? If they do those three things, I think that they certainly can beat them on that one. So, all righty. And Bob Dole saying that if you overlay the RGB in the computer of the colors, it becomes the Commanders and the Chiefs. Interesting. Okay. So I hadn't seen that one there. What do you, I guess, Bob Dole, what do you mean exactly by that one there? I haven't seen or heard that one. I've just been hearing about the actual colors, doing it with the prime colors being red and green, and seeing that one there. So, yeah, let me know what you're talking about on that overlay there. And then Scott saying that part of me thought the officiating was bogus in that Texas game. It was like the refs would lean towards giving Casey the call. I mean, we talked about that a little bit earlier there, right? Like there is some of that there does seem to just kind of be the if you're Patrick Mahomes, you seem to kind of get those calls that some other folks may not necessarily get. So I can certainly understand the thought there, and I wasn't a big fan of how some of those calls were made. So I can certainly understand where you're coming from. Binkin saying that Bob, there's only 4 teams left, not that hard to predict. Yeah, I can see some of that, right? But I am still very interested in what Bob Dole is talking about here, where if you overlay the RGB in the computer of the colors, it becomes the Commanders and the Chiefs. Like I just I guess I don't understand how the 2 teams that are both basically different colors of red and different colors of gold, how that gets to be in a green kind of color in there. But I am very interested in what you're referring to there. So, and so with that, the Kevin, any thoughts kind of going back here to this one here where Scott was asking, do you think the Bills can beat the Chiefs? I was saying that if they can create some plus in the turnovers, control time of possession, and get some pressure on Mahomes, I think they have a real shot at that.
Yes, I do think the Bills can beat the Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs are nearly as dynamic as they've been even in the playoffs in years past, right? I mean, which is crazy because they have some name power this year, right? Yes, it's an aging D-Hop, but Hollywood Brown's back. Travis Kelce's been playing more of an active role. You have Isaiah Pacheco back. However, it's just not, I don't know. It's just not fluid. Like eventually Kansas City, I feel like is going to get caught because I feel like they only turn it on when they feel like they need to turn it on. And so it's going to be interesting. And the Bills just kind of seem to have quite a bit of momentum heading their way. Obviously the big game against the Ravens, they're playing better down the stretch. Complementary football. Their running game has been a really nice change of pace. That's not just the Josh Allen show. That they've been able to get some running game going with James Cook and Ray Davis. And then they're sprinkling in kind of this cast of characters in the passing game between Cooper and Shakir, and then Dalton Kincaid, have a little bit of Dawson Knox, Curtis Samuel, gets involved every once in a while. So I guess if I had to pick right now, I'd tell you the Bills are going to beat the Chiefs. Like if I had to pick today and say my, 401k is on the line, I'd tell you Bills over Chiefs. I'd be nervous as heck, but I could live with that and live with it, at least enough to where I don't feel like I'm completely kicking out the window there. So it should be everything we want it to be. Both these games should, right? Round 3 of Commanders versus Eagles, round 2 of Bills versus Chiefs. Like, it should be both games, everything that we want it to be for a conference championship weekend. So, some rivalry, one's divisional, one's, kind of top quarterback of this generation of football type thing. Potentially the MVP in Josh Allen. Going up against Patrick Mahomes. So I think what it's going to come down to is like Derek said, it's going to be a turnover. Neither quarterback really turns the ball over a whole bunch. Mahomes has a propensity of being able to give you one. You just got to capitalize on it. Allen has done a really good job of not even giving you that. So after last year, when he went on a streak of interceptions, he's done a really good job of protecting the football here. So, if the Bills can get that one, I think that's what's going to make the difference. Like, this absolutely should be a one-score game.
Right.
Let me rephrase that. The Chiefs will win close, the Bills can win close, or the Bills will blow them out. Right? There's 3 scenarios. There is no scenario on paper that tells me Kansas City can blow Buffalo out the door.
Right.
I can see it the other way around.
Yeah, I could see that, where Buffalo ends up winning by even 2 possessions, right? They get a 9 or 10 point win, right? Like, I could see that one come to play. I think the more realistic scenario is this one's going to come down to who has the ball last, and it will likely come down to a field goal type of thing at the very end, right? Like, we've seen this one play out many times between these two, where it's ultimately who has the ball at the very end is who's gonna walk away with the winner.
How important is the coin flip in this game?
Yeah.
To see who gets the ball first and who defers.
Right. Especially because if you can get that to a point where it's if you can get that to a point where you get to defer it, you get some points right before the half ends, and then you get to start the third quarter with it again. Like, that could be a very big deal in this particular game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That 2-for-1 right around halftime, like, that could be very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, any other thoughts on this one?
No, sorry. I had to scour my house. I had a beeping smoke alarm.
Oh, that's no fun.
So, yeah, I had to figure out what it was so it didn't wake the kids up.
Yeah, there we go. Binkin saying that they have no idea what an overlay RGB means. It's all right. Neither do I.
What's to do with the red, green, blue colors in the logos?
Yeah, but I don't have, I doesn't mean I know anything more than that. Binkin also asking, what Philadelphia defense do you think we see this weekend? It's a good one.
I think you'll see a Philadelphia defense who knows their passing game is struggling a little bit, right? And for whatever reason, I don't know what is going on. I know that Kellen Moore has kind of taken this offense backwards in some ways. Saquon has covered up a lot of holes for the Eagles this year. And if you had any other running back, if it's not Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, or Derrick Henry, I think the Eagles are in a whole lot of trouble, right? Like, I think those are the 3 running backs that could do something in this offense right now and cover up those blemishes. If it's not one of those 3, I don't think there's a back in the NFL who could save the Eagles how they have been playing. So, that to be said, Binkin, Philly's going to come out. I think a lot of this game is going to be on Jalen Carter. Right? Can he be disruptive up the middle? And not that Jaden can't move around that a little bit, but it speeds him up. And that's really what you're looking for, is you are trying to speed up his clock. And the Buccaneers and the Lions both did not do a good job of getting up the middle. They were coming around the edge, but he had time to keep his eyes downfield. When you have someone coming up the middle, like a Jalen Carter, it drops your eye level, right? And when you drop your eye level, sometimes you lose track of where your receivers are. Maybe you have an errant throw. And again, it speeds up that internal clock. So maybe you try and force some things that aren't there. Maybe a ball gets batted. I mean, so there's some different things that can happen. And I also think holistically, just as much as the defense, having Jalen Hurts healthy for the whole game does make a difference, right? That is one thing in the second game between the Commanders and Eagles. Jalen Hurts started out really strong, right? That first was the first drive, first two drives, whatever it was, and then got knocked out with the concussion. So if that doesn't happen again, this Eagles offense, while not as explosive as you would like for it to be in the passing game, the threat of Jalen Hurts throwing downfield is still great enough that it has to be honored. Because as soon as you don't respect Skinny Batman or AJ Brown, they will beat you. And Hurts has done a better job utilizing the tight end this year than I think he has in years past. Part of that's the Kellen Moore effect. He does use the tight ends a decent amount in his passing scheme. So we've seen some more Dallas Goedert, especially since returning from his injury. Goddard's been more involved with the offense. So I think that does some things for the Eagles offensively. But, I mean, I don't know that anyone's necessarily afraid of Washington's defense, right? The Bucks put up points. They got outscored. The Lions put up points, even with 5 turnovers, got outscored. If Philly doesn't turn the ball over, they have to feel confident that they can get points. So then it's who can make the stop at the right time. Last week, Washington was able to do that against Detroit. You know, what week was that, Derek? Week 9, 10, when Philly played Washington the first time. Philly's defense made plays all over the place, right? It made Jaden Daniels look like a rookie. Not the same player as he is today, not the same teams that they were back then, but we've seen Philly be able to do that to Daniels. So,
right.
Yeah, that's why I think these divisional conference championship games are super fun. Third time these two teams play each other, or any two teams play each other if they meet in the conference championship. A lot of history, a lot of familiarity. They know what each other likes to do in most situations. So then it's, whether it's a turnover, whether it's a 4th down stop or a 4th down conversion along the game, sometimes it's just a long drive that kind of wears the other team's defense down a little bit, and then you can put them on their heels.
Right.
Both teams are capable of that in this matchup, really in either matchup. So it comes down to not flawless execution, but high-level execution. Which team can do it more often? And the little mistakes turn into big problems when you magnify the game like this.
Right. And honestly, I think in this particular matchup on both sides of the ball, it's going to come down to which defensive line plays the best, right? And you've got two different struggles. Whether you're the Commanders or whether you're Philadelphia there, right? For Philly, their defensive line, right? Like I think you're spot on when you say that Jalen Carter in that matchup is going to play a huge part in this game. Because ultimately what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to contain Daniels. And so your edge rushers are going to have to get out and play contain, keep him from being able to get outside the pocket, make a play down the field with his legs. But then in that case, you're going to also require your defensive tackles to get pressure coming up the gut without necessarily giving up running lanes for him to escape through as well, right? Like that is going to be a huge part of this game. And how do you contain Jaden Daniels, keep him in the pocket and speed him up, right? To get the ball out and not allow him to have a 80, 90 yard rushing game on that one, because that then sets up everything else on their offense as well. So there's a huge part of that's Philly's defense is going to rely heavily on what that defensive line can do, right? And so if you're going to let that secondary is a good secondary, but if you let Jaden Daniels find the throwing lanes and pick you apart, he'll do it, right? On the flip side of that, on the Commanders side of it, it's going to come down to that box and being able, can you keep Saquon Barkley to even 100 yards rushing on that one? Can you limit the big play type of thing? Can you keep run lane integrity and really make that to a point where he's just going to, constantly getting 4 or 5, 3, 4, 5 yards of carry and not allowing for those big breakaway, pull away, home run plays there. And if you can do that, I think that's going to be the kind of the difference maker on both sides of it. And interestingly enough, right, like, to kind of have that thought that it's going to come down to the defensive line for both sides of things and how they're able to control that, the trenches on that one will ultimately determine this game here. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, I think this matchup in particular, if you just looked at the paper matchup, the Eagles truly do hold the edge in every category.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the Commanders have been playing as a cohesive unit, I think has been a great equalizer, right? Because if you're breaking it down, the running game, the running backs, the Eagles have the edge, right? The pass catchers in general, the Eagles again have the edge. AJ, yeah, like McLaurin has been great, but McLaurin and Smith and Goddard outweigh Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz, and
Dimitri Brown, Zacharias, like
it just whoever else you're going to plug in there. So quarterback play, you could argue that that's a wash right now, right? Jaden Daniels has been kind of playing.
I'd argue that Jaden Daniels
outside of himself, and Jalen Hurts has been playing a little bit less than what we've seen. But Jalen Hurts has been in these matchups a little bit more. Maybe that means something. Maybe it doesn't. Like secondary, the Eagles have the advantage. Linebackers, I'd tell you, are about even, right? Braun and Bobby Wagner, inside linebackers for each team, both first-team All-Pros. Right? So, okay, fine. And defensive line, I'd give the slight edge to the Eagles. Offensive line, again, slight edge to the Eagles. And that means nothing, right? We just spent the last 3 minutes talking about this, and ultimately it means nothing.
Right.
Because they suit up, they go play, and what is on paper goes out the door. We are not comparing Madden rankings and determining a winner off of that. These guys are going all out, and sometimes it's just about which team is hotter.
Yeah.
And to that, I'd tell you the Commanders are probably the hotter team right now than the Eagles. They're just playing better.
Right. Yeah, Jaden Daniels, I think you could make an argument that Jaden Daniels is having the best performance of any quarterback remaining in the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, statistically, hands down. Yeah. I mean,
and just
there's no doubt about that. I think Lamar Jackson would probably be the one that could have argued that had they won against the Bills. But like you said, of the 4 remaining teams, statistically, Mahomes, Allen, and Hurts are a rung below, or a half rung below what Jaden Daniels is doing for the Commanders right now.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. This comment coming in here, and since we're on this one, we'll go ahead and stick with it. So, were you guys surprised about how much juice B-Rob had running the ball last week? I really wasn't. I guess some time off certainly helped that, and they seem to be having kind of a good mix there, kind of subbing him in and out, and allowing him to be the in between the tackles guy.
And I think momentum it's a beautiful thing, right? Like sometimes when things are going right, just it just continues to fall your way. And yeah, he might have had a little bit extra juice, but I think the Commanders had an us against the world mentality
Mm-hmm.
against the Lions a little bit. There was no one really giving the Commanders a shot. Um, everyone, I'm sure their press clippings, right, as far as Washington goes, were, they're already anointing the Lions, right? We shouldn't even be here. Like, are you really going to let people talk to you that way, right? Like, you need to go and show the world what you can do and that you're a force to be reckoned with, and all the the hoorah motivation strategy that goes into sports. Maybe football a little bit more than some others, just because of how much emotion and adrenaline is played in the game of football, with it being, basically 7 seconds at a time. But yeah, I think that helps with some of that juice and out to prove something. And, when you can feel it, coming your way, you have a little bit extra confidence about you. And I think that helps get through, a ding here, or maybe one subpar play here where you missed an assignment, but maybe your team's the only one that knew that. So you survive and you find them like, okay, now we got them. Like, we'll fix this and we're gone. So did have some juice, maybe a little surprised, but I think game flow and the success that they were having offensively played a big part of that, because they jumped out quick. And when you're playing from a lead in a playoff game like that, you probably do have a little bit extra juice about you.
Yeah, I like it. Binkin also saying that if Philly defense plays like they did this last week against the Rams, he thinks they'll beat Washington this week. So could be. I mean, they certainly put up a really good performance.
It's been a solid defense, right? I mean, they've had a moment or two, but really the Philly defense has been pretty solid year round. I mean, um they were pretty high. Like, I don't have the PFF numbers in front of me, but they were ranking high in most defensive metrics for a good portion of the year. They were a team that obviously we were targeting in fantasy because of those metrics and tackles for loss and getting sacks and some turnovers and everything like that. So, well within their means. And like I said, I think part of them is playing maybe not outside themselves, but they're giving a little bit of extra juice because they know offensively the passing game is struggling. Like, if Saquon's not getting it done, they gotta get a stop so that way Saquon can try to get it done on the next play.
Absolutely. Alrighty. Dynasty question coming in here over from Easy on YouTube. Dynasty question saying Jordan Love and a 2026 second rounder, or JJ McCarthy and Odunze.
I'd take McCarthy and Odunze for Dynasty.
Yeah. I don't know that I necessarily love it either way, but I'm not a fan of it really either way. But if I have to pick one side, I'll take the McCarthy Odunze side. So it'll be interesting to see, right? Like, is JJ? Yeah, I'm really interested to see what the Vikings do this year with their quarterback room. Do they bring Sam Darnold back? Do they turn the reins over to JJ McCarthy? Like, is this are we going to see Minnesota do a Jordan Love type of project there with him coming off of an injury? So, be interesting to see how that one plays out. Any other thoughts on this one?
Creative.
Yeah. Scott saying Robert Saleh can be a good coach and deserves another job. The Jets were just a clown show with Rodgers and Woody. I can see that. Right. Saleh certainly seemed to have that defense playing well. Never could get the offensive side of the ball working. But
no, I tell you, where Saleh truly impressed me was how he handled the Aaron Rodgers BS. Like he was doing everything he could to just be a leader of men, and he took everything squarely on the chin. He did not pass the buck. He did not throw people under the bus. He did not, I guess, outwardly get into it with Aaron Rodgers, regardless of what was going on. Um, the Jets are going to jet, right? I mean, and that's pretty cliche, but they will find a way to kind of mess things up. So I would agree with that. I don't mind Robert Saleh. Honestly, I think he'd be a pretty good fit in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and get that defense right, and then you just bring in a really strong offensive coordinator. But again, to Derek's first point, he hasn't proven that he can bring in a really good offensive coordinator. Um, and so it's being able to find that next guy and what's going to work with what the Cowboys have on offense, given the fact that they don't have a whole lot of salary cap room.
Right.
So they're going to be kind of up against it here for a little bit. So they can't make a ton of moves, and they need more than just a running back, right? They need a little bit more depth on offensive line. They need another solid pass catcher to pair up with CD Lamb. They need a better running game than what they got this year. They need a little bit more depth along their defensive line and their secondary still. As injuries have kind of plagued them along those fronts, like there's just a bunch of things that the Cowboys need to plug up, and they have smarter men than us running the books, right? All these NFL teams do. But as you're looking at it, they can't fill every hole through the draft. They're going to have to find different ways to get creative, or really lean on some young guys to take that next step and plug the hole organically.
Yeah. Very true. Jordan saying, "Sup, good old boys." Not much. You know how we doing it. It's the Tuesday show, just rocking and rolling through it. Thanks for tuning in, Jordan. And Mario saying, "Greetings. Will the Reefs help the Chiefs beat the Bills?"
I hope not. I I know we like to jump on conspiracy theories, and I love a good conspiracy theory, and this definitely plays into it a lot of times, but I truly hope not, because it's not a good look for the NFL if that's what it comes across going into the Super Bowl. It's just not. If the Chiefs win the game outright, and we don't think that, okay, fine. The storyline's the three-peat. If the Bills win, it's a great storyline out of the AFC. Josh Allen finally got over the hump. He's going to be going for his first Super Bowl. Like there's too many good storylines just naturally attached to these four teams, let alone just the AFC side, that I hope the refs don't have a play in it. I was listening to a show on the NFL station on XM, and they had Dean Blandino on there. And he had very high remarks for both officiating crews for the conference championship games. Now, he's one of them. I get it. Before all the naysayers come out, I get it. He's one of them. Yes, he's been part of the conspiracy theory if you're choosing to believe that. But he didn't have to outwardly endorse them with such high regard. He could have said, "Yeah, they're good crews. I think they'll do a good job. Their metrics stand tall. They've been consistent all year long," and just kind of done coach speak, if you will. But he went a step or two above that. So I I'm going to choose to believe that going into the game, because otherwise, why do we watch sports, right? If it's truly scripted, then why do we watch it? And if it was truly scripted, you can't tell me that you would be able to keep hundreds of NFL players quiet and not try and cash in on a payday with writing some tell-all book at some point. And we have not seen that. And believe me, Aaron Rodgers would be the first one in line to put that in his autobiography of how the refs screwed me. And I don't see that happening. So I'm choosing not to believe it. This one. There's a lot of others I'll choose to believe, not this one.
Fair enough. I keep reading that back and just asking, will the Reefs help the Chiefs beat the Bills? And I keep thinking of that commercial where Andy Reid walks up to the guy Peyton in the end zone and goes, "Looks great, but who are the chefs?" So
Andy Reid does a great commercial, man.
Yes,
highly underappreciated, and even the State Farm one that he does. The skidamarinky doo. It's just
yes,
him drawing mustaches on people last year and everything else. Andy Reid does a good commercial. He probably doesn't get enough credit for that.
Yeah, the bundle Rooski.
Yeah, bundle Rooski. That's right.
That one does crack me up, and it is always fun to see Andy Reid pop up on those. So, but I'm right there with you. Right, I do hope that we that what we're talking about next week is not bringing up the, oh my gosh, and we're spending more time talking about officiating going into the Super Bowl coming out of conference championship week versus talking about just good gameplay, right? And that's what I'm hoping for as well, is that we just see some good gameplay, and we're going to see really that it just come down to the play on the field and not necessarily any of the extracurriculars and flags and everything else that can come to play there. So, but yeah, well, any thoughts on some of the coaching carousel? We did hear talks about Ben Johnson no longer going to be with the Lions and making a move to the division rival Chicago Bears.
I think one that people probably aren't talking enough about just yet is Josh McDaniels going back to the Patriots to be Mike Vrabel's offensive coordinator. Obviously, I'm very interested to see what the Saints are going to do, and I haven't really heard any names super attached to the Saints because they're in disarray. They are in salary cap hell. They're in quarterback hell. It's an older roster. They don't have great draft capital, just okay draft capital, but they are a mess right now, a mess. So you'd like to see maybe a young up and coming guy go to the Saints, and just a guy that they're going to invest some time in as they work through some of these things. But it's the NFL, and if they bring some young guy in, I don't want to see him get destroyed because he has 2 years to try and fix a problem that wasn't even his.
Right.
And then they're going to get tired of maybe underperforming and move on. So I don't really want to see that. So really it's, if Glenn stays with the Jets, I'm interested to see where Saleh might land. Again, I think he's a good fit for the Cowboys. I could see him possibly doing something with the Jaguars. And I don't know that that'd be terrible because, again, it's not a terrible defense, and I think he could get some more out of them to be defensively relevant. And then he has offensive pieces to at least help support. And then can you trust him to bring in a good OC? There's been rumors of Kellen Moore to the Cowboys. I don't know. History, right, is kind of the only thing, but what worked for Kellen Moore in Dallas has not worked anywhere else.
Right.
It didn't work with the Chiefs, or excuse me, the Chargers. I'm not convinced it's working with the Eagles. I think their talent is getting them there in spite of Kellen Moore's offensive play calling. So I think the last 2 years have really set him back, if you will. Obviously the Cowboys rumor right now, or at least the Vegas odds on favorites, is Schottenheimer, which I think the Cowboys are, if they go that route, they're doomed. Like, they are not set up to handle his offense, like, at all. So you have too much money invested in your quarterback and your star receiver to then try and reformat it and turn it into, essentially what the Baltimore Ravens were 6 years ago.
Right. Or what Seattle was back with when he was with them, right?
Yeah, right.
It was trying to just run the ball and run the ball and run the ball. And, oh, it's now 3rd and 6. Now we probably need to throw the ball. Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not necessarily going to work. They don't necessarily have the running back personnel to get that done. At least at this point, I don't think they do. They've got
It's not
holes
going to work
all
in that
along
division.
Right.
Like going up against the Eagles and Commanders, the Giants, you should still be able to get over on the Giants. They have their own problems. But if they can find their quarterback, as we've seen with the Commanders, you can turn your ship around really quickly. So the Cowboys could be in big trouble real quick if they make the wrong hire here. So we'll see how that goes. And then Mike McCarthy's still sitting out there. And then I'm sure we'll see a couple wild card names stashed. Why am I not thinking of the name? The Bills offensive coordinator, Joe Brady.
Joe Brady.
Joe Brady would be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, realistically, I could see why Joe Brady would be the right fit for the Cowboys. You have your quarterback, you have a receiver, and then you just do it with a bunch of guys. Now, Dak Prescott is no Josh Allen, so please, save your hate mail for someone else. I'm just simply saying that you could make some things work. They have a solid tight end. They have a star receiver. They have a quarterback who is above average. Like, I think Joe Brady could do some interesting things if he were to go to Dallas, but I don't think he's going to.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that he'll go there either, but I am very interested to see what they're going to do there, right? Because Dallas is an interesting one there, right? Where you've got to kind of come in and play company man more so there, it seems like, than some of these other jobs, right? New Orleans, another job. I don't know that that's necessarily like that's one of those you take the job because you want to be a head coach, not because the situation's very good. Kind of the same thing with the Jets, right?
The Jets have a defense. The Jets have Garrett Wilson. The Jets have Breece Hall.
Right. They may not have a quarterback. So
maybe not, but you trade for JJ McCarthy and maybe you have one.
Well, there you go.
I'm not done on this. Like, I've mentioned this a bunch over the last few weeks, and I still think that's the right move for multiple teams, not just the Vikings. If you can flip JJ for a first-round pick, you re-sign Darnold, then you go back to the well in 2 years. I mean, why not?
Right. Yeah, fair enough.
JJ McCarthy is not going to beat Jaden Daniels, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, right? Joe Burrow. Like, JJ McCarthy's not going to do that. So you don't have the right quarterback to be able to stay on top of the mountain regardless of what you do. So flip him for a piece, right? If you can't get over on the positional aspect, being quarterback, then you have to beat these teams other ways. So you flip them, you get a pass rusher, you get another offensive lineman who can hold up to it. Like, the Vikings don't need another pass catcher with Addison, Jefferson, and Hawkinson. Like,
right.
Maybe if they're not convinced that they're going to bring Aaron Jones back, maybe they look running back. If they're just looking at offense, Genty would be an interesting piece in that offense. A little pass catcher, not going to have to run the ball 300 times, right, to save his frame, but has the ability to make people miss in open space, big playability, nose for the end zone. You could argue that if they get a high enough draft pick to do it, but they're going to have to flip McCarthy to do that.
Fair enough. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. Binkin was also chiming in saying that if Allen gets sacked 8 times, the Chiefs will win as well. Yeah, that very well could be.
Part
Part of that problem though is you gotta get there and then bring Josh Allen down. That's not an easy task there. Scott over on YouTube saying that the Giants messed up their draft position with that late season win, may not get Sanders or Ward now. The Giants are a lot more than quarterback away still. And then I don't know what if you're going to be able to really go out there and make the turnaround that the Giants fans are looking for, where they're looking for a Commanders type of turnaround where you get to make an early draft pick and then, springboard that, or the Texans from 2 years ago, make a springboard on that one. Like, I don't see that necessarily happen, even if they got either one of those guys. Any other thoughts on this one?
No. No. Ward, might go to Tennessee. That could make sense.
Right.
But the good news is we always see a dark horse through the combine. Always.
Mhm.
And the Giants are in perfect position for that because Browns are not going to draft a quarterback in the first round. Like,
No, I don't
maybe
think
they
so.
should, but they're not going to. They have some other issues. So then it's the Giants. The Patriots aren't going to draft one. The Jags aren't going to draft one. And then Vegas needs one at 6. And it's going to cost Vegas a ton of draft capital to go from 6 to 2. So then it goes into, do you trade for McCarthy? Because again, a year ago, McCarthy coming out after his national championship win, I'm not convinced that McCarthy wouldn't be the top quarterback in this draft class. So if you like him, if you're comparing his stats to, or not, maybe not stats, his film and metrics and what you like about him in film study, and compare him to Cam Ward or Shedeur or anybody else, where's McCarthy really stack up? Leader of men, doesn't really turn the ball over. I could see Dayball kind of wanting to do something like that, be done with the turnovers. He's a little bit mobile. We'll see how he comes back from the knee injury, but a little bit mobile, but he's not going to rely on his legs. So maybe you save yourself from some of the sacks that Eli was taking. Or you go rental. How about this for the Giants? You bring in Jameis. You draft offensive line at 3. You bring in JMO for a year, and you tell him just pepper the crap out of Malik Neighbors.
Right.
Just pepper the crap out of him. See what happens. The Giants any worse off? Like, if they don't love the quarterback that's sitting there, why not? So I don't know. There's a lot of different ways they could go.
Yeah.
To be determined.
Fair enough. Scott saying, LOL, so Daniel Jones is the starter for the Vikings. No, what in Kevin's
Sam
scenario?
Darnold, sorry.
Yeah, you're re-signing Sam Darnold in that scenario. So Binkin saying to me that he doesn't see anything that stands out for Sanders and thinks that he's overrated.
Cosign.
So I think it's interesting, right? And with Sanders, what I'd be really interested to see is if they actually had an offensive structure and a play calling designed to actually be somewhat even balanced on offense, right? Like this is one that we saw play calling and schemes designed up to try and put up Star Wars numbers for him to try and pump that up there. So I'd be very interested to see what it actually looks like when there's a little bit more balance of a play call there and having to run a more pro style offense instead of the spread type of thing. So it'd be very interesting for me.
I don't think he can make the reads.
Yeah, at that point, I don't know that the offense we saw them run and at CU necessarily relies it, it certainly didn't showcase it for sure. So
I don't know. He haven't studied it. I watched a little bit of CU mainly because we live in Colorado and it got shoved down my throat.
Right.
But it seemed like a lot of one read, and then you hold the ball for a long time until Travis Hunter gets open.
Mm-hmm.
So that does not strike well. So I agree. I'm not in the Shedeur Sanders camp at all.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what comes through on some of these, right? Like when these coaches sit down and they start going through the, and they start meeting with the teams and really going through the draft process there, and these teams really start grilling these guys as far as the whiteboard and the film and all of that. I think it'll be interesting to see where the draft capital truly lies after that point, right? And and it's not just Shedeur, but there's a few different quarterbacks in this class that I think there's some potential concerns about that across the board on that. It'll be interesting to see through this draft process who kind of rises at that point, because I think you will see a quarterback taken, even 2 or 3 quarterbacks taken in the top 5, top 10 again. So just seems to be the nature of the game anymore. So it'll be interesting to see who rises through that process. Brandon asking where the cake cutting saber's at. So, and then Binkin saying that must be in Washington. Brandon saying decent blocking and Justin Jefferson cures all QBs. There could be something to that. Binkin saying, imagine wanting to draft Sanders. LOL.
So if you're the Giants, maybe this kind of popped up. Recent history is in their favor, because at least the last 2 years, the second quarterback taken has been the better quarterback for the rookie year, with CJ Stroud and now Jaden Daniels.
Right.
So maybe the Vikings are crossing their fingers that they can get it 3 times in a row. I don't know. There's a lot to be determined here yet. It's fun to guess, but we'll get closer into it. We'll do some deep dives and have much more relevant information as we get into the end of March and beginning of April before the draft.
Right. Our speculation and pontification hopefully gets better from here on that front. So awesome. Well, I do think I'm not seeing any additional comments coming in here. And I think that kind of takes us down here to the end of it. Any additional kind of thoughts or final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
Enjoy the weekend, right? 2 great matchups. 2 great matchups for Sunday. So enjoy. I say enjoy, a Saturday of no football, and being able to, maybe do some things that you've been putting off here for the last couple months. So enjoy that. But then on Sunday, get right back to it. You get 2 great games to watch, and we'll get after it then. So we appreciate it. At Good Old Boys FF, like, subscribe. We appreciate y'all. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And Binkin throwing this one out there saying that they're out for the night, but enjoyed chatting and see y'all next time. Absolutely. Do appreciate everybody tuning in, chiming in, all the commentary, the questions, all that good stuff. Very much appreciate all of that. And we'll be back next Tuesday as we start talking on some of the recap of the conference championship, and we start gearing up here towards the finale of it all. And should be a good show next week here as well. But that's going to do it for us tonight. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.